It can be argued that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and his predecessor, Ayatollah Khamenei, used both the headscarf law and the abolition of the family protection laws from the previous Pahlavi regime to establish a regime rooted in patriarchy and theocracy, employing gender inequality to solidify political control. The headscarf law, hijab mandate. Shortly after the Islamic Revolution in 1979, the new regime enforced strict dress codes, including the compulsory wearing of the hijab for women. This was part of a broader effort to reshape Iranian society along Islamic principles, as interpreted by the ruling clerics. The imposition of the headscarf became a highly symbolic act that signified the state's authority over women's bodies and served as a clear departure from the more liberal, secular policies of Shah's era when the hijab was a personal choice. By enforcing this law, the regime aimed to embed its theocratic values into everyday life, creating a visible distinction between the Islamic Republic and the Western-influenced monarchy that it had replaced. Abolition of the Pahlavi family protection laws. Before the revolution, Iran's family protection laws, introduced in 1967 and revised in 1975, had made significant strides toward women's rights, including improvements in areas like divorce, child custody, and polygamy restrictions. However, following the revolution, many of these legal protections were rolled back as the new regime sought to establish a more Islamic legal system. Laws governing marriage, divorce, inheritance, and other aspects of family life were reinterpreted through the lens of Sharia Islamic law, which often entrenched patriarchal norms. This reinforced a gender hierarchy where men held more power in both the public and private spheres, ensuring the regime's alignment with its religious and cultural base. Gender inequality as a tool for political power. By establishing a legal and cultural framework that privileged men, especially in familial and societal roles, the regime created a system where women were more restricted in their freedoms and autonomy. This gender inequality became a way to maintain political control, as it helped to uphold the regime's theocratic legitimacy by emphasizing traditional male-dominated social structures. In doing so, the government could claim adherence to Islamic principles while simultaneously controlling the population through moral and legal enforcement. In short, Khamenei and his regime have used both the hijab mandate and the rollback of women's rights to construct a political system where patriarchy and religious law are central. This system continues to rely on gender inequality as a means of political control, ensuring the state's authority over both men and women in accordance with the regime's theocratic and patriarchal ideology. So, it can be argued that Iran's theocracy employs a form of gender apartheid to maintain control in the 21st century. The term gender apartheid refers to systematic policies that segregate and discriminate against people based on their gender, limiting their rights and opportunities. In Iran, this discrimination is deeply embedded in the legal and political structure, particularly when it comes to women's rights. Here's how this manifests in Iran. Legal discrimination. Iranian law, grounded in Sharia principles, treats women as second-class citizens in many areas of life. For instance, women are subject to strict dress codes like the mandatory hijab, have fewer rights in family law such as divorce, child custody, and inheritance, and are excluded from key political and judicial positions. The rollback of laws that protected women's rights after the 1979 revolution further entrenched these inequalities. This system creates a gender hierarchy where women are legally subordinate to men. Segregation in public life. The state enforces gender segregation in various public spaces, such as universities, sports events, and public transportation. Women are often prohibited from attending certain events, like men's sports games, or from traveling without male consent in some cases. This segregation is not only symbolic, but serves to limit women's participation in public life, maintaining male dominance in political, social, and economic spheres. Enforcement through morality. Police. Iran's morality police play a central role in enforcing gender segregation and modesty laws, often targeting women for improper dress or behavior. These institutions act as an extension of the state's ideological control, ensuring that women adhere to the state's interpretation of Islamic modesty and gender roles. This system of surveillance reinforces women's subordination and restricts their autonomy. Patriarchy as political control. The regime uses gender inequality as a mechanism of political control, framing the strict adherence to traditional gender roles as part of religious and national identity. By keeping women marginalized and dependent on male guardianship, the state limits dissent and controls half of the population through social and legal repression. Resistance and backlash. Despite this, there is significant resistance from Iranian women and progressive movements within Iran who view these policies as outdated and unjust in the context of modern society. Women have increasingly protested against the compulsory hijab and restrictive laws, highlighting the tension between theocratic rule and the realities of 21st century global norms regarding gender equality. In conclusion, by institutionalizing gender-based segregation and discrimination, Iran's theocracy does utilize a form of gender apartheid to enforce its control over society. This system of gender inequality serves not only to maintain the political power of the regime, but also to suppress women's autonomy and participation in public life, making it a cornerstone of Iran's theocratic governance in the 21st century. This is the result of the struggle with the secular elite bureaucracy.